I was able to prop my phone up onto the pile of clothes that I got right here. Currently writing my third midterm. My third final paper. This is invisible disability. Throughout the semester, we have studied constantly how people with disabilities have been labeled by society, causing them to be oppressed and often looked down upon because of their disability. This is especially seen in the workplace. There are people who are visibly different, and there are people that blend in. One of these people is Luis Santos, who has Parkinson's disease and collects disability from the government, who I also sat down with to interview for this video. I sat down with Luis to get more insight about his life and situations in comparison to that of a person that has a more obvious disability. The following video is the conversation between myself and Luis. Now, do you consider yourself disabled?
Yes. I have a balance problem and shaking problem, holding stuff. It's hard for me to hold stuff. I'm a left-handed person, so it's hard for me to grab stuff, hold stuff, and my balance of walking, it's pretty difficult.
I'm going to state a quote. The noun form of the word access, meaning the power, opportunity, permission, or right to come near or into contact with someone or something, first appears in published texts in English as early as the 1300s. It has been used to characterize the relationship between the disabled body and the physical environment since the middle to late 20th century. More specifically, it refers to efforts more prominent in the United States to reform architecture and technology to address diverse human abilities. I'm going to show you a clip from a video that we watched in class. It's titled, "My Body Doesn't Oppress Me, Society Does."
When I have my access needs met, I'm functionally not disabled, but when places have stairs and everything is built for people that stand so I can't see anything, and, it's a really dark environment so I can't see anything, because, as you get older, your vision changes. So now I need a lot of light to see things. In an environment like that, of course I'm disabled.
So after that, what challenges have you faced from society in terms of physical access?
I haven't faced any as far as any accessibility for me. My physical stuff is more my balance and stuff like that, but as far as other, I haven't had any issues.
Has there ever been an issue of you think that, I don't know, maybe there's a place that has a lot of stairs? Have you ever come across a place that's like that?
Yes, I have. Another issue is places where I have to sign papers. It's real difficult for me. Yeah. And if I go to the DMV, I have to sign. Yeah.
Personally speaking, there's been a lot of cases. I work at CarMax, and whenever there's people that come in that may have a disability, not fully capable usage of their hands, it's very difficult, just because even if you're talking about e-signatures, they need to physically click a button, and even that it may be difficult. But the state of Illinois is one of the few that requires both wet signatures and electronic signatures, and because of that, there's been a lot of pushback at my store because of that. We've talked to corporate about it, we've talked to a lot of people about it, but that's an issue that it doesn't necessarily get met all the time. And it's really difficult when somebody comes in and literally just want to sell their car, they want to have somebody else literally physically sign for them.
Yes.
And then CarMax will give them so much pushback, literally just for writing your name on a piece of paper.
Yes.
So yeah, I get you when it comes to that.
Yeah, I have found that to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What challenges do you think many people with disabilities face when it comes to inclusion, recognition, and acknowledgement? One example of that may be whether there's a lot of stairs in an area. There can be inclement temperature of certain places that may cause people's joints to hurt if it's your specific disability.
The stiffness, I do get stiffness, but that's mostly during the winter time where it's cold. Mm-hmm. So I have challenges with that. I mean, during days that I was working and I had to stay where there was a cold place where I would have stiffness, and I won't be able to sit, so I had to stand, and my back would hurt, be stiff. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't let me sit. I would have to stand for 7 hours or so.
There's been some situations where there's people that become blind. Awelafani is an example of that. She had to go to the DMV, I think, for signing over some documents. They were calling a number, and like she had this little number in her hand, but she can't see that, she's blind.
Right.
And they're calling the number, and she has no idea what number she took, and she has no idea what place she was, and like she had to have somebody there with her, obviously my mom, to be able to help her out. So it's situations like that where like assistance isn't provided in situations like that,
Yes.
where it may make things more difficult for people to access certain aspects of life. Where an abled person, they may walk into a place and they don't see anything like wrong with that, because obviously everybody else is the same way, you know. But for somebody that is disabled, even for example like deaf people, in a situation where let's say you have your little number in your hand at the DMV, and they're calling you over the intercom, and you're on your phone and you don't know what's going on around you until you put your phone down and you look up and you're like, oh, that's me. It's situations like that where accommodation should be met, but it's not there.
Yes.
Things like that. Can you name a specific time in your life where an access need was not met, if you can remember one?
He went to actually sign for your need was not met. They wanted him to sign, but then again,
Your joints are really hurting you when you're at church, and Dad has the AC blasted.
yeah.
I think when I was filling up my first time when we had, I think it was in 2021 or when I first got my first pistol, and I went to register for 4473, and I couldn't fill out the paper, like really fill out the 4473 because
You couldn't physically do it.
yes.
If you can't physically do that and you need accommodation for that, somebody to say, hey,
Right, 'cause-
I'll be here to help you do this, that, the third.
Yeah.
Or like just legally, there's not a law that allows somebody else to sign on behalf of you if you verbally say that.
Yeah,
That's lack of an
filling out
accommodation.
the 4473, you can't have any help at all. Plus, they didn't have a computer, or you could do it on laptop. Which when we went to GATS, they had a computer, and it was a lot easier for me to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you do physically do the 4473, physically, my handwriting was like scratchy, so they had me redo it 4 or 5 times until I got it right. Otherwise, they wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
But in GATS, I did it on the computer, bam, bam, and I was done. It took me a little time because I was just going like this, but I did it.
So that's a situation where there was
Because
a place that you were at where there was accommodation versus a place that you didn't have accommodation for.
yeah,
Okay.
they haven't evolved.
Yeah.
So-
There's certain places that are still
Doing paper.
on their way.
Yeah.
Now, has there ever been an issue in the workplace where there was lack of accommodation in any of your places of work?
Yes.
Whether that
Many.
was a paid job or like, I don't know, whether you're like doing
Well-
things at church.
When I first got diagnosed from security and I couldn't do my job as far as a security officer, I went to Human Resources and I told them I had an issue with my Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Human Resources wasn't accommodating me to apply me for another position. They wouldn't help me out, so I had to reapply for a different job. I had to quit my job as a security officer and then reapply again, like I started all over again. They wouldn't accommodate me for another position. So I think Human Resources was not helping me because I had a disability. They did not help me in that time frame, in which they should have helped me. So I was really frustrated with that.
I'm going to read a section from an article that we read in class. It's called Sub-Minimum Wage for People with Disabilities. Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, permits paying people with disabilities wages below the statutory minimum. Congress passed the FLSA in 1938 as a part of a New Deal, and Section 14C initially sought to provide employment opportunities for disabled soldiers. The law has since moved away from veterans, but remains a legal way to pay people with disabilities less than the minimum wage. Although the statute initially included a wage floor, 75% of the minimum wage, legislators reduced and eventually eliminated it, resulting in some people with disabilities legally getting paid pennies per hour. What is your experience with pay in the workplace? And do you think that society may be more lenient to you or less based on your specific disability?
I think they're less because they kind of take advantage of people that are disabled because of the disability they have. So they take advantage of the disability. They think they can't pay them that wage of another healthy person, and they can take advantage of them. That's my opinion. I always did my job, and they always accommodated me. In my second job, I reapplied. Like I said, I had to reapply again and start all over again.
What was your second job?
My second job, I worked for an independent company called Sodexo. So I wasn't working for per se the hospital. I was working for a different company.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to start all over again. Worked for that company for 8 years. Besides, I worked for the hospital for 25 years. So in all, I worked for 30 years at the hospital.
I'm going to read another quote. Most fields of study continue to approach mental health and disability through a medicalized lens rather than a shared experience of marginalization, meriting improved recognition or support. People have a lot of ideologies about certain disabilities and how they should be treated, that there's something that needs curing, usually mental health, or something that needs accommodation, usually physical impairment. How has either ideology negatively or positively impacted societal views of your disability? When it comes to your disability, do you think that people would say that that's something that needs to be cured or something that needs to be accommodated for?
I'm thinking it's to be cured.
Do you think that that has to do because this is not something that you were born with?
I think it develops over time.
Okay.
Yes.
One thing that I didn't know a few months back before this course was that if two people with disabilities are married, their disability benefits do get cut. You're watching the movie Patrice, which is about a woman and her husband who are trying to fight back against this policy that is not in their favor. There are people with disabilities that depend on their checks for stability, usually the same people that struggle finding jobs because of their societal label, or those that are paid significantly less than their peers because they are deemed disabled. In my personal opinion, this seems like people have to choose between financial stability and love through their labeled marital status. What are your views of this? What would you like to see done about this, if anything?
I think they should be allowed to get married and have the disability. I think it's not fair.
The way that society sees it is that since there's two people that can now depend on each other, they deem them as like not needing disability checks, basically not needing to depend on the government for anything. However, if there's two people that are incapacitated and they do need a little bit more help, but they do still recognize that they do want to get married, it's kind of like this gray area of like, what can we allow them to do versus what we can't? And the goal is obviously to make everybody independent and less dependent on each other, less like fully relying while still recognizing what needs to be met. So my camera ended up dying at this point in the video. It is an entire 24 hours after the video was shot. But Luis did share a little bit more after the camera had died. We didn't notice the camera had died until like 10 minutes after talking. But I'll read from his perspective. My disability prevents me from doing things efficiently. There are certain things I have experienced in life that I have done and can no longer do, like ride roller coasters, do certain sports, my writing isn't as good, etc. However, my disability in comparison to someone with a more obvious disability, like someone who uses a wheelchair, is something that I feel is tough, but manageable. However, that doesn't mean that all disabilities are as so. Those who have disabilities that they were born with, that's a part of their identity. It's a part of their culture. It's a part of who they are. And I may be labeled as disabled by society, but that doesn't mean I cannot do life the same way that an abled person can. Wheelchair bound or not, intellectually abled or not, seeing or blind or deaf or hearing, labeled by society or not, those who are given this disabled label can still do life whether their disability is visible or not. I think that Luis brings up a very good point with this. Just because one may be labeled by society doesn't mean that they are confined to a certain kind of lifestyle, that they have to live a certain way. Just to put it in perspective, Luis has Parkinson's, but he still owns a firearm. He still fires it regularly, goes to the range regularly with his wife. I do think that that's something that's really admirable, just because society says that his condition deems him not functional to do certain things, and which and sometimes maybe the case, but then in other cases, like he still has Parkinson's, but he's still able to do things like go to the range, which definitely requires a lot of handling. Things like that, they're still very admirable. It is these kinds of invisible disabilities that we do not notice or acknowledge until they are spoken about. With this video, the most important takeaway is that we be mindful, open, and accepting to all people, regardless of ability or disability, whether it's at work, whether it's in schools, in public spaces, and in all situations and settings of life.